Hello, everyone. Let's talk about fire. Now, the fire that I'm specifically referring to is the fire at Disneyland, the Disneyland parking lot fire. This is a picture from a video from Ham Daddy 247. You can't play it. This is just the picture. So you could click on this all you want. It's not going to do anything. But this was a fire that happened last week. This is a fire that happened last week. It happened in the Pixar Pals version of the parking lot, and basically it happened pretty it's crazy. This was let's see here. This was on April 4th. At least it was updated April 4th, and that happened pretty early in the morning. Now, for those of you guys who don't know, here, let's go Disneyland. Okay, so Disneyland Disneyland is a very nice place right here. We could actually just go to the maps here, but the Pixar Palace parking lot, here, I'll just open this in maps. That'll make it easier. The Pixar Palace parking lot is right here. So this is Mickey and Friends parking structure, and this is Pixar Palace. Generally, these are two connected parking structures, so that when you come in, generally a lot of people come in from the 5 right here via the, no, I don't need translation, cool, thank you. You come in for the 5, and then you just come in through this driveway. There's also a carpool lane that's a little bit more direct into the parking structure. This is Disneyland itself. This is California Adventure down here. And this parking structure feeds into both of them. You take a tram, and then you come into the parks, okay? And Pixar in particular, the Pixar Palace parking lot, we'll just go to the real layer, is this part. This section right here, it's multi-layered. There's about 5 levels, and this fire took place on the 4th level. So, where's the 6 levels? I think it's 6 levels. So this is on the fourth level. So that's fun. That's fun. Yeah, I think Goofy's 5. They're all color coded for your convenience. The third level is Mickey. So, and Cars for the Pixar side. So it's red, blue for the 4th, green for this 5th, and 6 is the top. And that's like purple, I think, or pink. I think it's purple. Could be pink. This is Pixar. And this is in the A row. Right, if we go back to that picture, right, as you can see, this is in 55A, which is pretty close to the front of the parking structure, so right around this side, close to the tram. So extremely close. And boy, oh boy, it looked really bad. Now, how the fire started, it's very clearly it's a car fire. And there's talks about discussion of what it actually was, and there's a little bit of I wouldn't say debate, but there was a confusion initially. What was the cause? Like, they initially said that a Toyota RAV4 was the cause of the fire origin, but later on, according to USA Today, the police say that it started inside the engine of a Kia Sports Surge SUV. Now, Kia Sports SUV, I don't know what that looks like. Let's take a look. We just do a bunch of images right there. That's a Kia Sports Surge SUV, multiple colors, right? Theoretically, assuming Google Images is correct. So apparently the fire started in this car, and it sort of escalated. And apparently more than 6 cars, between 6 to 12 neighboring cars, so it could be more than 12 cars, 6 to 12 neighboring cars sustained damage from the fire, ranging from smoke damage to undrivable. So apparently some cars were just not drivable, which makes sense, right? If your car burns up, you might not want to drive it. 1, because it's too damaged to drive very clearly. 2, you don't know how much your car damage has suffered, right? It may look fine on the outside, it may smell really terrible, but the internal components might be affected. So that's really crazy. And everything. This red here, I generally don't think that means that there's a fire going on. It usually means that the parking spot is taken, but it's sort of like saying like, hey, maybe you shouldn't be here. Speaking of not being here, I'm concerned about some of these people that are filming this fire here. It's a cool picture. It's a very cool picture, and if this just started, I would whip up my phone too. But generally speaking, it's probably best to move away from a fire, right? In the emergency situation, move away from a fire and let the emergency responders happen and everything. So that's crazy. But yes, 6 to 12 cars affected, maybe 13 cars because it said additional cars. And there's pictures of the cars being pulled out from the parking lot. Now, How was the fire response? How was the fire response? There was, let's see here if I can find it right here. There was, the firefighters did come in. The fire department did come in. The thing that you need to know about the parking structure is it's able to field a lot of tall vehicles, but I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong, I'm pretty sure it can't generally fit one of those giant fire trucks, right? You know, those big fire trucks that you can down the road? Probably not able to do one of those big fire trucks. Maybe a smaller vehicle, maybe a smaller emergency fire truck they can do, but not the big ones. I believe, and I could be wrong on this, but I think that the Disneyland parking structures, including the Pixar Palace parking lot, do have the ability for firefighters to use hoses to fight the fires, either via some sort of piping that they can connect to in some manner. And I think we've seen some of this. I'm not sure. I was trying to find a good image of the Pixar Palace. But they do have these emergency boxes here, and I don't think this is connected to any piping, but some of them might be. But there's emergency things scattered throughout the parking structure that are clearly there for some reason or another, and I bet some of them are for firefighting related purposes. So that's kind of the interesting thing there. But yeah, this was a crazy fire. This is from Paula. On I think this is X, right? And then you can clearly see there's fire emerging from the parking structure. That's just amazing. That's crazy. That Paula had a good view of the top there. We got the fire like just clearly coming out from the top. It's a lot. And it looks absolutely dangerous and everything. So, car fire, Pixar Palace parking lot, Kia Sports Surge, and yeah, that's crazy. Now, here's what Disney needs to do, right? So, Disney's going to ensure the safety of the guests is paramount for a number of reasons. One, the people that run Disney aren't monsters. You know, I know people like to joke around about, you know, our corporate overlords and that sort of thing. But no, we're all human. We're all human first. That's when I went to journalism school, that's what I was taught. Like, we're all human first. We're all human first. And we don't want anyone to get hurt. And stuff like this, it can be very dangerous because fires can range out of control. And we've seen that before here in Los Angeles, right? Very recently fires can go out of control. And of course, there's crazy fire seasons in California just all the time. So Disney's going to do what it can to protect the guests. And that means evacuating every single person from this parking lot, getting everyone out. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of people in this parking lot. This is just the top level, right? Now multiply that by 5. Sorry, multiply that by 6, right? Because there's 6 levels. That's 6 times as many vehicles. 6 times as many vehicles in this parking structure. Actually, let's Google it. How many people can fit in the Mickey and Friends plus Pixar Pals parking structure? Now, this fire took place in the morning, right? This was like, 10, 11 o'clock in the morning? 9:47. 9:47 in the morning, and then the fire crews reported they were stopped at 11 a.m. So, very, very early in the morning, okay? The combined Mickey and Friends and Pixar Palace parking structure can approximately accommodate 16,500 vehicles. Now, let's assume that those vehicles are holding at least 2 people, right? When you drum to Disneyland, you might be coming with here. Sorry, it's my head's in the way. Here, nope, that's not it, right? Camera's in the way, right? That's it. 16,500. Now let's assume. Yeah, let's write down that number. Right here, yeah, 16,500. 16,500 cars, okay? And then we're gonna multiply that by 2 because people are coming with families. Not everyone. So some people are coming by themselves. Some people are coming in with their spouses, their days, their one of their children, and some people are coming in with like full families, right? 4 or 5, maybe 8 people. I don't know. Some cars could hold more than others. Some cars could hold a lot of people. But let's just assume 2. That's a very conservative estimate. two people. So how many of that? I don't need to do the calculator in this. I could do math. I went to school. 33,000. So that's 33,000 people that have used this vehicle on a daily basis. Now, that may be an overestimate as well because it's in the morning, right? This was 9:48. 9:47. And so that means a couple things. One, not everyone is parked at the parking structure yet. There's a lot of people that have not parked here yet. So, there's people trying to come in. The parking lot is probably not full. Let's see, April 4th. What day was April 4th? Is that a Monday? I think that was a Monday. April 4th, Monday. 2022 is a Monday. Let's see here. Let's see, month calendar. Let's see, month calendar, 2025. April 4th was, in fact, a Friday. Well, good thing we looked it up. It's a weekday. However, even though it is a weekday, was it April 4th? Or is it just updated on April 4th? I think it's April 4th because they all say April 4th. Published April 4th. So it must have an April 4th. April 4th is a Friday. And so that's a weekday. It's a weekday. So that means people are at work, people are at school. But Friday means it's a little bit busier than normal because a lot of people tend to take off work or school on Friday to go to Disneyland because it's right next to the weekend, right? If you take a day off on Monday or Friday, those tend to be pretty good because it aligns with your weekend, so you can have a 3-day weekend. You got to take into account there's also spring break, so a lot of people are off for spring break as well. So it's not as busy as the weekend in the morning, but busier than every other weekday, pretty much, right? So that's that. So it could definitely have been, I don't know, 33,000. We could even say 25,000 people, maybe even less than that, 20,000. We'll just divide that by half. That's a lot of people there. And there's a lot of people that are in the park, so they're not at their cars, but that also means there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people coming into the parking structure and they're parking. And Disney's going to do whatever it can to protect the people, these lives of these people, because they care about them. They also don't want the liability, right? If somebody dies at Disneyland, that's probably a lawsuit, right? And whether it's justified or not, it's a lawsuit. Probably, someone is going to sue someone. Disney doesn't want that on their hands. So they're going to go ahead and they're going to evacuate everyone here. Everyone in the parking structure. If you're on the top level, you're at the bottom level, you're off. If you're on the Mickey side here, on the north side, which we didn't have the fire was on the south side, Pixar Palace, you're going to evacuate this top side, right? You're just going to evacuate this whole area, right? You're going to say, back away, get away from this spot. And they're also going to stop the trams. A couple reasons for this, right? The main reason they're stopping the trams is that trams go right underneath. This is the tram route right here. And they drop off guests right here that are coming back from the parks and they load them right here. This entire area right underneath here is the loading zone for the Mickey and Friends tram, which just so happens to be underneath the fire. So one, if the fire gets under control, right, and the structure collapses, that's really bad. So you're going to stop all the trams and you're going to get everyone in this underneath here out of this way. So all the trams are stopped for safety reasons. The other reason you stop the trams is you don't want people coming back to the parking structure, right? Because they can't go to their cars, right? If you're evacuating the parking structure, you're not going to let anyone in because that's dangerous. It's dangerous, right? You want everyone out, you don't want everyone back in. So you're going to stop all the trams coming from Disneyland. You're gonna say you're right here. This is where downtown Disney where they loaded it. Say no trams, no more trams, no more trams. Stop the trams. So everyone who's trying to get back into the parking structure, which is a decent amount of people, but probably not too many, given that it's 9:47 in the morning to 11 o'clock in the morning. It's probably people that are saying oh, I'm gonna go quickly into the morning, go to Disneyland and come out, or those oh, I need to get something from my car. Right? It's usually something like that. But you're not going to get a ton of people. It's more people coming out into the parks and less people coming out. But all this area, this waiting area, is going to be backed up. They're going to have security guards. We've seen this. They're going to have security guards. They're going to put up gates and going to say, please, the trams are closed. The parking structure is closed. You cannot come. And people will ask hey, can we walk back? Right? Because you could walk to the Mickey and Friends parking structure via downtown Disney. It's a bit of a walk. You have to go all the way down over here, then do the downtown Disney parking lot, and then up into this section right here, which connects to Pixar Pals. They're not gonna let people through that way either, because the Pixar Pals parking lot is literally the one that's on fire. So they're gonna say you can try, but you're not gonna be let in. You know, the parking structure is closed. And that's what's going to happen. So there's going to be a lot of people just kind of waiting and trying to figure things out. Some might be worried about their vehicles. Some might be like, you know, being like, how are we going to get home? But not usually too many at this point, this early in the morning. Okay, we're 15 minutes in the video, guys. If you are still watching at this point, type in Pixar into the chat, Pixr. We'll put people there in case you people know. Pixr, Pixar in the chat for the Pixar Pals parking lot. Okay. So that's what Disney is trying to do here, and they're going to evacuate everyone for safety. We have reports of what happened later. So this is what people were lining up after it looks like the fire probably was out. There's no smoke at least, so I'm assuming this is from I.A. Hebert on the Our Disneyland Reddit, and this is there. And then there's some updates from different people on the Reddit saying that as of 6:30. As of 6:30, there is people being escorted back to their cars, right? So people are being escorted back to cars at 6:30 p.m. I assume 6:30 p.m. So that's kind of interesting there. And then there's a line of entrance of level 5, and level 5 is where the fire took place. So Disney wants to do that to make sure the guests are safe. One. They don't want anyone to get too close to the fire area, because there's probably some damage. There might be some damaged vehicles there. There might be some debris. They might be trying to cordon off the area so that they can do inspections in the future for making sure that the structure is safe. And of course that, you know, they don't want anyone to kind of, you know, go too close in case the structure is unsound. But people do want to leave, and in some cases it's actually might be good to get some of the vehicles out of the structure, out of the area, because the less weight that's being put on the structure, the less likely it's going to, you know, suffer further damage if it suffered significant damage, which we don't know. We don't know. I don't think Disney's released any information on that, but we don't know. Now, so it looks like guests were able to get let back in, but it was good that they weren't let back in until maybe the late afternoon, maybe night, as you know, at this point, based on what Hank Tad said right here, maybe as of 6:30. So that's very interesting kind of information there. This is a picture. This is a picture from Jay and Fran that was taking the picture. This was, like, I believe, the day after. Let's see here. April 5th. So this is the day after. And there's two pictures here. There's the morning picture, and there's the afternoon, and there's the picture after that. So right in the morning, they were still parking people. They were still parking people on the level, right? This is the Dory level, the Pixar parking lot, right? I said it's blue. And they're still parking people at this parking structure. But they're not parking anyone in that section, right? It's clearly, it's marked off. They got cones. They got people watching. They got equipment out. And so they say, so here's what I think happened. Is that Disney, during the time after the fire department came, put out the fire, they sent in their engineers. Disney has a lot of engineers in the, and inspectors in the company that they employ for specifically these kinds of reasons, I'm sure. That or they're contracted, but they're contracted to come immediately. And those engineers would take a look around. And they probably looked at the concrete. They probably looked at the steel supports. They're probably looking for any like cracking, looking to see if there was anything that looked out of place or unusual, because of the fire, right? Did the heat from the car fires damage the structural support to the point that this area is unsafe, is unusable? They might have even taken a sample. For it, depending on how bad it looked. But whatever the engineers did, they probably determined at some point, as they spend a few hours taking a look at it and analyzing their samples and saying like, hey, it's probably not as bad. Probably looks bad, but probably not as bad as it looks. It's safe enough to park vehicles on the same level. Maybe not next to it. Let's not park right next to it, but you could park on the same level. So once they made that determination, of course, then you could start letting people back in and getting their cars out. The tricky ones would be any of the cars that would be really close to this section. I think in that particular case, they probably had like a lot of people on hand just in case, and a lot of engineers watching out. But for everyone else that was a decent distance away, they probably were okay to get them out. And in fact, they probably encouraged them to move their vehicle somewhere else. Maybe to another section of the parking structure, like the Mickey and Friends section. Right, like I said, the Mickey and Friends section is the top portion, or maybe to the Toy Story parking lot. Disney has multiple parking lots. The Toy Story parking lot is this one. It's not a structure. It's literally just asphalt or pavement or concrete, whatever you call it, and then you just park underneath the sun. Right, good place to park, by the way. Good place to park. The other way, if you're coming on your rope dropping the park, it tends to not get so busy at be 8 o'clock ish in the morning. It's very easy to get into this area. The only difference is you don't take a tram to get in the park. You take a bus, so you miss out on the tram experience. So that's a sad thing. But yeah, I bet the engineers determined that it was probably not too crazy. And then this is the same picture from our friend there, from our friend Jay and Fran, who later in the day. I believe that this was at 6:15 p.m. And they've put up the standard Disney, we're doing construction walls around that area just to block it off and so that they can do some work. So it's all closed off now. They don't have and they have people that are clearly kind of working on it. Apparently, I guess it's not too bad because they have some of their construction vehicles parked really close to that area. Okay, so what does Disney need to look at? What does Disney look at beyond the structure for fires and stuff? Well, they need to look for smoke damage and toxic residue, right? Disney doesn't want, and the smoke damage can be important, right? Because Disney doesn't want, one, they don't want a bad guest experience, but two, it's probably not fun to breathe that in. And again, Disney doesn't want to be sued, right? If someone says like, oh, I got cancer because all this toxicness, is like, yeah, Disney's really like, no, we're not. They don't want to deal with that lawsuit. What, at all, right? Disney's lawyers say no lawsuits. They need to check the electrical wiring, the lighting, right? So notice that, so if the parking structure has lights, because if you don't have lights, you can't navigate at night, which is really bad. For a very big structure that doesn't where there's tons and tons of cars and people vehicles. So there's lights. You can see how they also have these green and red. These are indicators to tell you if the parking spots nearest them are occupied or not. And this is very useful if you're in the Disneyland parking structure, and these lights you generally could use them saying, oh, green means that the parking spot is open. Now, there are some caveats to this. Sometimes it's a false positive. It says it's green, but the parking spot is occupied. It may be because the car is parked a little bit too far forward or too far back, so the space is kind of open, but it's not really. You couldn't fit a car there. It might be because of the car's color, right? The car's color could be throwing it off. It could be that the device itself is just simply malfunctioning. So sometimes it's green when there's not really an open spot, but generally speaking, they work pretty well. The red means that the spot is occupied. Right, so don't park there, right? So they need to check for the equipment failures. They need electrical failures. They need to also check for emergency systems, right? Like I said, Disney does have emergency systems. Oh, man. It's on this side. Disney does have emergency systems and boxes scattered throughout, and they need to, of course, check if any of those were affected, right? If there's any piping, any water piping that was running through that section, Disney needs to take a look at that. And then, of course, some of the other stuff, cameras. Disney probably has cameras all over the place, security cameras, paint and signage, right? If any of the paint and signage was damaged. I mean, it looks like the fire happened pretty close to this area, right? The 56, 55A signs. So that could have been, that paint could have been damaged. And you're saying, oh, Kevin, does the paint really matter? Well, for Disney it matters, because Disneyland is all about providing a good customer experience for you, right? Disney wants you to have a great customer experience. And so if you see like paint damage signs, Disney be like, well, that's not good, right? They want a bad guest experience. So that's going to be important, right? So that's the important thing. So they might have to, they're probably undergoing repairs. And there's part. They might have to replace or reinforce certain sections of the structure. Based on like what we're seeing here in the cars parking, it might not be too bad. It'd be interesting to see if we get pictures above and below, like, are they also blocking off the same section on the level above, or and are they also blocking off section on the level below? We don't. I don't know. I don't know that information, but possibly they could be doing that as well. So replacement reinforced section resurfacing. The fire could have damaged some of the lines on the ground here. Some of the paint lines, so they might be redoing the paint lines. They might be doing the paint on the signs, that sort of thing. They might have to look at the equipment. We have to replace the equipment. Looks like it didn't damage the whole system, right? Because these lights are on, so maybe just along that row, any cosmetic stuff. And so the repair time, depending on how much damage, could be days to weeks, or weeks to months if it's more significant. But based on what we're seeing here, I don't think it's gonna take several months. I could be wrong. I'm not in construction. I'm not a civil engineer. My studies were in mechanics. So so for all our civil engineering friends, maybe let us know, based on what you can see, which you may not know, from these pictures, like how much it might take there. But but I don't think it's not a multi-year project. So sufficient to say. Difficult to see what the damage can be from the pictures. This is, I think, the closest we can zoom in. Like, can we open the image and then zoom in a bit more? Yeah, not really. Okay, so very interesting. Very interesting regarding the fires and such. One other thing that we probably want to talk about, and this is cost, right? Is cost. Who's paying for this? Well, Disneyland is probably insured. Right, if I were the Walt Disney Company, I would insure Disney for everything. And fire is one of the more obvious things to insure for. If there's something that happens, if there's a fire that happens on our property, let's get the insurance so that we have the ability to replace it. Replace things very quickly. And so Disney probably has insurance. They're probably working through their insurance to get the cost there. The vehicles probably are insured. At least you'd hope so. To drive a vehicle here in California, you need insurance. I'm not sure if that's the case in the entire United States. That probably is the case in the entire United States. But in California, at least I know, you need insurance to legally drive your vehicle. So the vehicles are probably insured. And it'd be interesting to see if Disney is compensating the people, the guests who are affected by the fire via their vehicles being burned, or damaged. In some way or another. I'm not sure if they would necessarily pay for the repairs, although that's possibility, just straight up cash. But maybe these benefits in other ways, like free tickets to the park, right? Or fast passes, or special benefits in other ways, right? You stay at the hotel, that sort of thing. So that would be very interesting. I'm sure that guest relations, if I were Disney, I'm not sure, but if I were Disney and I had guests come back to the parking structure and their car is burned, I definitely would have a guest relations person, like a manager, ready to help them, saying like, hey, how can we help you? Do you need a car? Do you need us to get you a vehicle so that you could go home? Do you need to stay in a hotel room because you I don't know, for some reason, because you're planning on driving to home to San Diego. Maybe you live in San Diego, right? And now it's very difficult to drive to San Diego, which is like a 3-hour drive, 2 to 3 hour drive from Disneyland, depending on traffic. If you don't have a car, that's really difficult, right? And then of course anything that might have been in the car that people need throughout the day, it might be important, right? Maybe you need diapers, right? Maybe you need you had food in there and you or something. There's a lot of things that we all keep in our cars that we may or may not need, and you may come back to the parking structure for. So it'd be interesting to see if Disney compensated those guests. I'm sure that Disney in general that day was a little bit more helpful towards guests in general, because a lot of them couldn't use the parking structure, right? Couldn't use the parking structure because they couldn't get to their car. Probably they shut down the entire parking structure for most of it, so a lot of people were probably redirected. You'd come off, basically what would happen is you'd come off the freeway, off this 5 here, and you would come right in here to try and pass this intersection, Ball Road, and Disney probably has this entire thing itself cut off. It says no park at Toy Story, so you'd have to go right, which is a lot of cars going right, and make your way down these roads over here to the Toy Story parking lot. And they probably had In these kinds of situations when they're directing like pretty much a lot of cars in that direction, they usually have signs help saying, here, go this direction or go this direction, so you don't have to kind of like try and figure things out on yourself. It's not the best system because these are surface streets that, you know, people are using for other things other than Disneyland, but Disney tries its best, and I bet the Toy Story parking lot area filled up pretty heavily that day. But interesting what happened on the Pixar Pals, right? There's just a fire and it's affected things. Usually don't see a lot of fires at Disneyland. I think the last major fire that I recall at Disneyland was when the when Murphy and the Fantasmic show caught on fire. That was pretty crazy, and that happened directly in the park during a show, so a lot of people saw it. A lot of people were right there witnessing it. Not so many this time. Hopefully nobody was hurt in this fire. I don't think so because it hasn't been reported on by any of the news agencies, right? CBS, Fox 11. No injuries were reported, says CBS News. So it looks so. Hopefully, so you know. Thank goodness no one's hurting. No one was hurting. No one was hurt. And it's pretty interesting. We're seeing what happens at the parks. You never know. You never know what happens. But sure can be a little scary and very inconvenient. Okay, guys. That's a fire for you. I'll talk to you later. We'll cover some other stuff that happens at Disneyland. And it should be pretty interesting. But man, fires. Take care. Have a good night.